Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Register's Kettle podcast. I'm Reg reporter Brandon Vigliarolo, and this week I'm joined by my colleagues Richard Speed and Kettle newcomer Orion Johnson to talk about a recent spike in cloud AI API abuse that's sticking customers with some massive charges. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars that Google is seeming to try hard not to refund. Guys, thanks for coming on.
Great to be here.
Yeah.
Either thanks.
Yeah, and Orion, welcome again to your first
I know,
Kettle
it's very
episode.
exciting.
Yeah, glad to have you here. So in this case, this one is primarily based on an exclusive you published this week about compromised Google Cloud API keys. And from what I read, it seems like cyber criminals are using those keys to run all the AI inference they want on most expensive models that Google has without paying a dime. So walk
100%.
me through what exactly this story is about.
So there were a couple parts of this. One is the API abuse, but then there
Mhm.
was this policy by Google that kind of threw gasoline on the fire. So if you're a developer and you've created like an API key for your projects, if your project uses maps, you'll
Mhm.
create an API key. And for years, the advice from Google was put that API key on the front end of that, make it public so that when users are using your site, it links back to your project. The
Mhm.
problem was a couple years ago, they allowed those API keys, if they were configured correctly, to also access Gemini. And a lot of folks who were kind of early adopters of AI went in and said, okay, yeah, I want to use Gemini with my project.
Mhm.
And not really connecting the dots that their API key on the front end that was publicly available would now also allow anybody to inference Google's Gemini platform. And it wasn't a big deal, I think, for a lot of years because I don't think the platform was really that amazing. Like people,
Yeah, because you said this
you know,
is this is a 3-year-old change, right? I mean, this
right?
is
But
yeah.
recently you have the the Nano Banana,
Mhm.
and the Veo three models came out, and that's when I think we started to see a lot of this. And this great security company named Truffle wrote
Mhm.
something about this in February, saying, "Look, be careful because if you've put your API key out, according to Google's instructions, and if you've also been working with Gemini models, there's a chance that you may have inadvertently opened up your API key to anybody to be able to inference Vivo and Nano Banana to their heart's content."
And
And that's
specifically a
exactly
Maps API key, right?
correct. Yeah,
Okay. And that
correct.
yeah.
And which again was Google had told everybody for quite a while was safe.
Yeah.
And so
And
what happened kind of inevitably is folks were bad actors were in fact using that for those purposes. So you'd have these sort of like horror stories of waking up in the morning and seeing your Google account, which you never spent more than $50 a month on. All of a sudden you
mhm.
have a $3,000 bill, a $5,000 bill. I talked to a guy who got a notification from his credit card company that, hey, we're shutting off your account because you've spent too much. And he's like, what the hell's going on? And as he's in there trying to figure it out, his bill keeps going up. Like it was three
Yeah, right,
thousand
which I
dollars.
think
Now it's $5,000
yeah, and
as
I
he's
think
trying
as
to
you
shut the
highlighted in the story in that point, I think you mentioned basically the where this is, how you figure this out is kind of buried, right? It's hard to find,
right,
right? So
right.
like as he's looking, trying to frantically figure out what's happening, more charges are being added. It's just I
Yes.
couldn't imagine waking up in the morning to that kind of
It's a
scenario. I mean, it sounds
rough
like a
way to
nightmare.
start the day. It's
Yeah.
really tough.
And so
And
that's the first part, right? So what's
So,
the
right,
second
that's the
part?
first part. The second part is that, this happened to people who had spending caps in place. And Google has
Mhm.
only recently put spending caps in place, but they're really loose caps. So you can, like, I talked to a developer in Australia who said, look, I put a $250 spending cap in place. And when I woke up, I had a $10,000 bill. And how that happened is Google will, and he said, when I was going through afterwards, I looked and I said my spending tier was at the $100,000 limit. And I said, how
Yeah.
does it happen? Well, if you look, I mean, like Google was actually very upfront about this. Like in March, they put out a blog and said, hey, we're going to help you out. If you've only got a $250 spending cap, if you spent $1,000 in the lifetime of your account and you've been a Google member for 30 days or more, a Google Cloud developer for 30 days or more, you can spend $100,000. And
Right. And
of
there's
course,
no notification to the user accounts that this is being done?
except for the emails that say this is how much you owe us,
Right. Wow. And
which
now
is
I
all after the
understand
fact. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, and if you're less than 30 days, right, it's moving to tier 2 is I think what's the cap on that? Was
Tier
that
2 is two
five or
thousand dollars.
$2,000?
2,000.
But
So
even then, it's spend $100 in the lifetime of your account, and you're up,
$100
right?
and be 3 days old, and
Yeah,
the Google will give you a $2,000 cap to spend.
yeah.
It's
I mean,
like those are the most generous terms. Like if you guys have been around IT for years. Like
oh
what
yeah,
distributor would ever give you terms like that? Like if you went to TD SYNNEX or if you went to Ingram Micro and said, "Hey, I'm 30 days old and I've spent $1,000. I would like $100,000 in credit with you."
yeah.
They would laugh. You can't get terms like that. Even
Yeah, they would laugh you
D&H.
out of the office and then maybe close your account.
Right, yeah, like
It's yeah,
yeah, even the best distributor in the world is not gonna give you those terms, but Google's opened that up. And then, of course, the problem is trying to get that money, like, trying to get your account restored because like, in 2 of the cases, the money had already been spent. So the credit
right,
cards, one was 17,000, one was $10,000. The money was already out of their account, and they have this project. If they charge it back, they're afraid that Google is gonna shut down their project and delete it.
right.
If they stick with the bill, then they're stuck with this debt that, is obviously outside the bounds of any budget that they had set for their
Mhm.
Google Cloud project.
Yeah, for a small
It
developer, that can be devastating. I
right,
mean,
right.
devastating.
So,
Yeah,
Google, though we do have an update, coming today. Google has refunded the 2 people we talked about,
great.
and looked in their account. It looks like they're kinda going after this with more accounts too, based on what I've talked to with Google. They're gonna look at a lot more of these issues, and, I mean, this didn't come to me in a vacuum. I mean, this was on these posts have been kind of flooding Reddit. If you go to the
Mhm.
Google Cloud, subreddit, you pretty much don't go, there's 2 or 3 a day that are popping up saying,
Yeah.
"Hey, oh my gosh, I've got $10,000, I got $7,000 in bills." Like, "I only ever spent, $50 with these folks. How am I getting these bills?"
Right, now, so as kind of a two-part story here, automatic tier upgrades are obviously a
Right,
problem, but are
right.
all these cases that you're seeing, are they tied back to the truffle, notice? I mean, these
I
are all
Not all
Maps
of them.
API keys? Not
Not
all of
all
them,
of them.
okay.
Some people say, like, "Look, I never put my API key out publicly," and I talked to a guy yesterday who said, "Look, my API key's been hidden from everybody. I think I got
Mhm,
brute forced." And I mean, I don't really know, if that's I don't know the possibility or the probability of being able to brute force an API key. They're huge, long chains of numbers and text. Probably not impossible,
mhm.
but this guy, and his bill was 127,000, which is
My
just a
god,
huge, huge amount. It
that is
was
so much money. That's ridiculous.
right.
That's like, oh my god,
No, I
yeah,
mean, and especially, like
$10,000 is bad enough. Add another 0 to that, and oh my god. I was just
yeah, I mean, that's rough. And fortunately, he caught it before he didn't, that bill only exists with Google. So unfortunate, like the good side is it's not on his credit card, so he doesn't have to
Mm,
try to, pay that back. The bad news is his Google project is looking at a possible deletion if he can't convince Google that, look, this wasn't me, this was really somebody else who brute forced my API.
yeah, and I mean, I'm guessing proving that is
Difficult.
pretty difficult? I
Well, it's
mean,
difficult when he said what makes it, difficult is that he no longer has access to the logs because he hasn't paid the account. So now
uh-huh.
he has to rely on somebody at Google to go through those logs and make his case for him, which
When
is
there's $100,000 on the line.
when there's 127 on the line.
Woo!
That's a gamble.
Yeah.
That's a gamble.
Yeah, but I know, I guess, so this is bad enough, but as I understand, Richard, Google's not the only company being a bit shifty with their AI billing. You wrote a story
Yeah.
this week about AWS customer who was billed $30,000 despite supposedly having a setting enabled to prevent this. So,
Well, that's right.
what's
Yeah,
this all
this
about?
is I mean, it's kind of almost a cautionary tale in some ways,
Mhm,
and again, we've talked about Google. There's also this is AWS, and this is a user who was using AWS Bedrock. He wanted to take Claude Opus out for a spin, try it out.
mhm,
See, he had some startup credits via Activate. All great. Now he was using a tool called the AWS Cost Anomaly Detection tool. What that does, that actually sends you alerts if you're doing some odd things, and your account is incurring additional costs. And as well
mhm.
as using AI and machine learning, you can also set some custom thresholds. Some real belt and braces. If I spend more than this, then stop or shout
Yeah,
at me.
cut me off.
So
Yeah.
so he thought, great, I've got that. What could possibly go wrong? And so he began to use his AWS Bedrock, and no alerts were fired. All was good until about a month after he began using it, and he got a bill for $30,000 or $38,000 through, where he was
Oh,
you
God.
know, he was expecting hundreds. And the reason being was that AWS Bedrock apparently bills through AWS Marketplace, and
Right.
that
Okay.
is not compatible with the cost anomaly detection. And so therefore,
So okay, so Marketplace is where you can pick up third-party integrations for AWS, right?
right, yeah,
And
well, that's where, yeah, and that's where AWS and Bedrock was being billed, was
okay.
basically being invoiced through. So basically, that, and to be completely fair to AWS, that is documented. It is in the documentation. This will happen. So hence the cautionary tale aspect. But again, I
Mhm.
mean, I've had a few people say to me, actually, it's pretty unintuitive. You kind of would assume it's being caught, and it wasn't caught, and so this
Yeah.
has gone through now. Unfortunately, at the moment, I don't think there is the happy ending about a refunding. So when if and when I get more information, I will update. But the cautionary tale aspect is. I've heard from somebody else who said, yeah, similar sorts of things can happen. So I tend to go directly through the AI provider. In this case, it's Anthropic. And
Mhm.
there again, like you can put limits in place. And those limits did save this particular person from a $50,000 mistake.
Yeah.
And he only ended up paying $50 because he'd accidentally turned on a thing which enabled a lot more invoicing to happen. And of course, it was stopped before it
Yeah,
got
but
out of
now, I mean,
control.
I'm assuming a lot of customers with the way they have their architectures and their infrastructure set up and their various providers. I mean, is it gonna be simple for, a lot of businesses to say, "I'm gonna skip AWS and go straight to the AI company itself"? I mean, that seems like it might work in some cases, right? But a lot of people are gonna be trying to integrate these, and so they're
Yeah,
gonna
well,
have to
go
go
ahead,
through these.
Jay.
So I guess does AWS does cost anomaly detection only function with first party Amazon products then basically? Anything in the marketplace that you're pulling from a third party provider doesn't get included in this?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, it's just through AWS services, except for marketplace stuff. So, but there
Do
are
you know
there are other checks
uh,
and things in place in AWS. It's just in this instance, the expectation was if I'm using cost anomaly detection, it should stop me running up a massive invoice or running up a massive bill using AWS Bedrock. In this case, it didn't. It was completely silent as the
yeah.
thousands and thousands and thousands began to rack up
And
on the
even I
account.
think you wrote even when his credits ran out, like,
Yeah,
he ran out of credits and switched to cash billing and there was no
exactly.
notice,
It suddenly
right?
went from credits to cash billing again with no notification or warning. It just happened, and so again, his account began to incur these charges, and so he didn't realize until the invoice came through. Oh my goodness me, how terrifying is this? As Ryan said, it's quite a shock when you're used to spending a small amount per month, and then suddenly a massive invoice comes through. And
Right.
One thing that that is kind of universal across this that one of these users pointed out is that the most frustrating part is that they have the information. Like they can see that they can see what you're doing in your account and they don't
Mhm.
stop it. Like all this information that we're talking about, like whether it's your usage, whether it's your billing, all that stuff is within the four walls of whether it's Google or AWS, and whether it's intentionally or unintentionally, like we live in this era where everybody talks about immaculate orchestration across all their environments, right? Like, I mean, if
Mhm.
you're in SaaS, that's all you hear is about how amazing and perfect their SaaS products are. And we just don't see that in practice. You don't
Yeah.
see that orchestration, and you certainly don't see it if it can ever give the user an advantage or if it can ever give the user the ability to control how much they spend at a almost immediate, like if a user could shut off, there was a notification that came in and said, "Hey, did you know that you're on VO right now and you're generating videos? Would you like to
Mhm.
shut that off?" Like, and think about your credit card company. Like, if I go one county over and I spend $10 at a Target, I'll get an
You get
alert
a
from the credit
text.
card
Yeah.
company go, "Hey, are you sure?" Like, like, are you telling me, Google and AWS, that you can't do that?
Yeah.
Don't give me that. I mean, this reminds me, like, when the banks in the US had the overdraft fees, they used to allow, like, they could see how much money you had in your account. They would gladly let you spend much more than that so that they could fine you for every transaction, and so you
Mhm.
so it was very similar. You open up your bank account and see, like, "Oh, I'm $800 in debt."
Yep.
Um, that was eventually determined to be, hey, that's an aggressive, that's not a good policy. We shouldn't allow people to do that. And I just wonder if I wonder if there's going to be some sort of trade regulation that kicks in on this.
I mean, it almost feels like there has to be, right? Like, it's like what we have in these two stories this week is multiple cloud platforms making their AI billing usage or usage billing so convoluted that a non-trivial number of customers are seeing their bills skyrocket, whether both due to cybercrime or simply, the fact that cost anomaly detection on AWS isn't very well defined on the marketplace, right?
Yeah.
You're seeing multiple companies this is happening to, right? Like again, right? Orion, you kind of like went right to the not the conspiracy theory, right? But that's where my mind goes too, right? Is
Sure.
like this seems
Yeah.
really convenient, right? Google's move in March, all these kinds of things are very well timed to ensure that companies that are adopting AI are being left with this ambiguous billing situation. Um,
If only there was a tool that could spot strange patterns in data and face. I mean, what would that look like?
yeah, I don't know. Oh my god. Yeah, it is one of those things where like you said, there's no way that Google and AWS don't see this usage or can't monitor it, can't pop a large language model on there to keep an eye out for unusual billing and notify people like you said. If you never use Vivo or never use Nano Banana and all of a sudden your account's racking up thousands of dollars of charges on it, Google should probably say, "Hey, is this you?"
Right.
Right? Like, that would be I would hope that would happen, right? It's like you said, right? Bank like all the Target will or your credit card company will notify if you spend things a county over, right? If I try to log into a video game online from a different IP address, it locks me out and makes me approve it, right? Like this is not a complicated technology here. Uh,
No, I mean, like, think about the user agreements that we have, like, with all of our subscriptions, like,
mhm.
like Netflix, like, you if I try to log into if my kid tries to log into my Netflix, from where they live, like, they can't, and they're like, and I get these
Yeah.
notifications about Netflix and like, "Hey, you wanna add somebody on your account?" Like, don't tell me that you can't do that, Google. And Google
Yeah.
actually says that they have, a shorter between the usage and the spend, that they have they're better than AWS when it comes to being able to spot this. But it's still something like 28 days to get to be able to reconcile usage with spend. And that just does not make any amount of sense.
Wait, so it takes
The
Google
other part is
28 days
they're
to
pushing people into these products. They
Uh-huh.
want you to use these products. They want developers they want to be able to say, "Oh, we have X number of developers who are using this. We have X number of spend." We have like those all of those hijacked API keys are inevitably helping marketing for Gemini. Be
Yep.
just through sheer usage numbers, through sheer revenue and dollars spent, that drives a narrative that they can then, on the quarterly earnings call say, "Hey, look at all these people using our product. Look at all the spend on Vivo. Look at all the spend on Banana." Like,
Uh-huh.
come on, you like guys, you gotta make it fair for the rest of us, man.
Oh, guys, are you familiar? Do you know? Are any other cloud platforms? Are there similar issues on Azure on other platforms? Have you heard anything, or is this seem to be mainly confined right now to Google and AWS?
Well, no, I mean, there have been some issues on Azure. I read a piece, crikey, several weeks, maybe even months ago now, regarding, and actually, in actual fact, a similar thing to what's happened with AWS with a user who he hadn't realised that his startup credits didn't count towards AI usage, and then he found
Mhm.
himself hit with a massive invoice because again, Microsoft just quietly said, "Yeah, sure, you want that service? No problem. Here you go, use it." And so he
Yeah.
used it, and then the huge invoice came through, and
Right.
that I think that's. I think it's important to point out that these companies they're not doing anything wrong legally,
Right.
ethically. I'm with Orion. They should be warning you to say, "Hey,
Absolutely.
you're spending way more now than you ever used to before on these services that you've never used before. Are you sure you want to be doing that? Are you sure
Yeah.
about that?"
I was talking to my
Um,
wife about Google before we started the podcast, right? Because when we were talking about the topic for this week, and I think Matt, our editor in chief, said AI overage charges. I was like, "What? This is going to be a boring episode." And then I got to actually reading these stories, and I'm like, "Oh my god, this is really interesting." My wife's like, "Surely this is
right.
illegal." I'm like, "Well, not if it's in the terms of service, right?"
Yeah, exactly.
you
I mean,
know?
It's a
again, it's
South Park
important to say.
episode.
Yeah.
I mean, But I mean, I think another aspect of this is there's a perception that AI services aren't inexpensive and they aren't, and you won't run up these deep massive costs. I mean,
Yeah.
one thing I've come across a few times are companies saying, "Hey, we can increase the productivity of our staff enormously because we can roll out these AI tools and our employers can use them and they'll be massively more productive and it'll be great." And
Hmm.
they're forgetting that, of course, there is a cost to that. And I think what we're seeing here are people hitting these costs. So I think that the message has got to be you need to be. I mean, until these companies actually put in warnings to say, are perhaps make it very clear how much this stuff is really costing. I think you need to be aware that this isn't a free service. It's going to be paid for somehow.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so I guess that's kind of the big warning to businesses is right. It's just kind of if you're or AI users, anyone who's using AI in the cloud in general, right? Is like these things are not free. Yeah, sure, you can use GPT for free if you're, some random person logging into the website. But if you want to go enterprise with this or use it in any kind of business capacity, it's going to cost you money and potentially a lot of it.
Exactly.
So Richard, you said that it looks like the AWS user might be a little bit hosed on getting a refund. Do you know is Amazon did you talk to Amazon for the story? Do they have any intention to change the marketplace versus
Uh,
non-marketplace CAD policy?
they did respond, and at the moment, there's no plans to change it.
Google is also they're sticking by their automatic tier upgrades. They like the flexibility that it gives to developers. So flexibility, of course, meaning that developers can spend a lot more than they initially wanted to or
Yeah,
agreed
yeah.
to. Um,
It's a very one-sided flexibility, really, when you think
but
about it.
it does. I mean, in fairness, I mean, we are kind of helping at least notify people that this could happen. This is
Yep.
something that is really happening to people, and their bills really do get become 5-figure, in some cases 6-figure bills at the end of the month through kind of no intention of their own.
Yeah. So I guess basically like we said, the big takeaway for business AI customers is to just really watch that billing. Be sure that whatever system you have in place to prevent overages is actually doing its job, and hide those API keys. Well, like we said, I guess this is just a cautionary tale, to watch that billing. So if this keeps happening, we are definitely going to be talking about it and writing about it again. And we hope that you will tune in on a future episode of The Kettle to find out more.